We patiently were live.
There we are.
Okay, welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you very much. For the record, Joan Goldstein, Commissioner of Department of Economic Development at the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. I'm not going to be able to keep looking back, so I'm just going to talk, and then maybe Jess will keep up with the slides. But we're a staff of now 28. And for a long time, we were probably one of the smallest departments in state government. We were hovering around 19 or 20 people. Since then, we've gotten some limited service positions. Thank you. We did that, I guess, over the last 2 years, just to help us with the deluge, I would say, of funding from pandemic-related relief. Many people have been in the department as long as I have. I've been commissioner now. It'll be 8 years in April, which feels long by state government standards in terms of these roles. I was appointed by Governor Shumlin, reappointed by Governor Scott several times, and hopefully that means economic development is nonpartisan. And I like to think that because we all need it. The mission, this is like a mission I think that's been recited so much, but I like to think about economic development as creating economic opportunity for all Vermonters while preserving all of our quality of life and values. I think we had a slide on buzzwords. Many of you that are familiar with what we do will see that some of this is all within our purview. So I'll try not to speak in buzzwords and just keep it in plain English. We don't do this work alone with economic development. We have a number of partners all over the state, regional development corporations, regional planning commissions, local chambers, VITA, of course, the Economic Development Authority, Small Business Administration, Small Business Development Center, and the Northern Border Regional Commission, which is a federal commission, but Vermont stands to gain. I think this year I heard there's even more money coming to the commission. But our agency, our department actually administers, solicits applications.
With USDA too.
Yes, with USDA, there are a couple of, not set asides, but there are USDA and EDA sort of initiatives that we could divert some of the NDRC money toward. So it's all in all, tremendous amount of heft. When I think about the work we do, it's all about, how do we improve properties? How do we improve grand list values? How do we recruit, retain workers, and train them, and overall just make it a better, better place to live? I often say, the governor is going to present his budget next week, and that's really a spending plan. And what we're trying to do is encourage activity that's going to bring about the revenue side, so that there's more economic activity, there's more sales and use tax, there's more property tax, income tax being the largest generator of the general fund. So I have a whole bunch of different programs to go through and give you results, but is there any one in particular you want us to focus on? I mean, the big news last year was the $40 million that was appropriated to the Community Recovery and Revitalization Program, and that was ARPA money, that's the American Rescue Plan Act funding, and we had 5 different categories of who could apply. So we have, of course, impacted industries, arts and entertainment, hospitality, education, or agriculture. We also had municipalities could apply if they're doing a water wastewater project connected to housing or an economic development initiative. And the other scenario is affordable housing or childcare. So quite a lot, a big swath. We launched the program in November. We had the first 30 days were open to owners of BIPOC owners of businesses or serving BIPOC communities, or any other community that's not in the Burlington metropolitan statistical area. So think everybody outside of Chittenden, Franklin, and Grand Isle. So far, we've received over 75 applications to that program with about $385 million worth of activity. And I like to say, in this position of being able to launch this funding opportunity, we get to know what's going on all over the state. And there's some great projects going on with communities banding together to bring forth many pieces of the capital structure to bring it to fruition. And so that's the great news, that there is great news happening all over the state. And we probably will be oversubscribed if we're not already. I think there's about $30 million worth of ask so far, but it's only end of December that we opened it up to all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably speaking out of order.
And of the early crowd, we got how many of the early 7? Do I see 7 BIPOC?
So there, 7 BIPOC led or serving, 6 were in qualified census tracts. So that is another track of being able to apply for this. They have a lot more leeway in what they could use the money for because it is a disadvantaged area in terms of poverty rates and income levels. But interestingly, there's 215 childcare slots through 5 different projects of applications, 43 applicants from impacted industries, 6 in QCT. So I think overall, we're very pleased with so far. I mean, we have a lot of work to go through all of them. We don't have them all sorted out.
Senator Brockett, let's make sure the questions are very informational. And then-
The question is on the awards thus far. Is there publicly available a list on an ongoing basis of what the projects are and who it went to and the amounts?
So there will be. So for the capital investment program, which was the precursor to this program, we have that on our website on eccd.vermont.gov. It'll give a synopsis of who got funding. As you recall, 2 sessions ago, we got $10 million for the capital investment program, and that has been pretty much expended. There are some people that are still in documentation process, so that's working its way. These, we are still in the process of making decisions, and what we think will work is that there's a legislative report due middle of February. We'll probably do the approvals and get everything through interagency team probably by early February so that we can be in a position to, we notify everyone and we also make it publicly available. And we'll do that more or less on a quarterly basis. Right, and so the next slide also just talks about capital investment. As I just said, we announced awards to 35 awardees, and again, 12 different counties around the state, $195 million worth of capital investment projects. So it's encouraging. It really, truly is. I mean, they're at various stages of development. Like some are very, very early stage, and we're going to work with them to see as they line up their funding so that we're not the first funding in.
And the max was 350,000.
No, on this, the maximum is 20% of the capital investment cost or $1 million. In the capital investment program, it was all devised by the net fiscal impact modeling. I don't know if you remember last year, we worked hard to not use that model for the community recovery because the model is very strict about job creation, when in fact, many capital investment projects don't necessarily create long-term jobs, but it doesn't mean that we don't want those investments and those improvements to happen. So that award from capital investment was limited by the amount of the net fiscal impact that was found. So many of them were under 500,000 each. I'll stick to the property sort of development, like brownfields. I'm going backwards, Jess. I don't know. She's driving.
She went whizzing forward.
Okay, so Brownfields Revitalization Fund was a couple of slides before, but again, this notion is really about, you know, our communities all over the state have contaminated properties, and it's so difficult to get those cleaned up. They're expensive, and the state has a very good, we call it BRELA for short. It's the Brownfields Limited Liability Program. So if you're an innocent purchaser, you want to buy this property, you want to redevelop it, the state will protect you from liability if you go through these stages of assessment, understanding what's in there, coming up with a corrective action plan. And in that plan, we'll talk about, it'll quantify what will it cost to clean it up. And so because of the Brownfields state money that you all helped get appropriated in the last 2 sessions, we were able to get quite a lot of funding out the door. We've got, it's for for-profits, nonprofits, and for municipalities, which is a lot more flexible than the federal money. We were also able to give larger grants. The Fed's usually limited to 200,000. So we are very keen to get those redeveloped. Obviously, even once it's cleaned up, there's time that it takes to get tenanted. And
I wonder if, I know that you have a question on this. I wonder if this could be an offline discussion.
Yeah, no, this is not the question you're thinking about.
Okay.
This is just if you could give people, because the scale, if you could give people a sense of the scale of the brownfield challenge, how many years on average it takes to clean them up, how many dollars it takes.
Yeah.
So it is, I think we just have to appreciate the scale of
Yeah.
the brownfield cleanup.
Yeah, then that's a good.
And you
point,
could bring
Senator.
that back at another point.
Yeah,
because
no,
it's gonna be
it's
in
fair. I
budget
mean,
adjustments.
we get asked the question, well, how many brownfields are there? And like A&R has the database, and it is hundreds of properties all over the state, some of which have not been assessed, right? So they tend to lie there. They tend to be pretty valueless. You know, towns are not able to collect what they could collect on their property. Some of them are really bad. Let's look at Springfield, you know.
Elizabeth Vine.
Elizabeth Mine. Some are, you know, either Superfund site or borderline Superfund site in terms of the amount of money it would take to clean up millions. So we're not providing all of the money, you know, but we're providing a very good gap. 453 Pine Street in Burlington had, you know, it's next to a Superfund site, so the build out on that is much more expensive to prevent any seepage, you know. So that is, there's a developer lined up to do a spa there, as I understand it, and we had a good kind of groundbreaking, but millions of dollars, messy things. Like sometimes it's as simple as just cover, if it's gonna be used as a parking lot, you just pave it over, fine. And sometimes not, it's PCBs or there's air contamination, and there have to be vapor barriers installed and ongoing testing and monitoring. So it gets expensive really quick, and a lot of people will be like, sorry, you know, there's a liability and then there's also the cost. So this has been an excellent program that I think had wide acceptance in both chambers. Really, really, really happy about that. I guess, and I don't know if, oh, good, Abby's here. There's so many other programs, but I think we should probably talk about the VEGI, the Vermont Employment Growth Incentive. You'll be hearing a lot about it this session because it's sunsetting in January of 24. So we obviously want to extend it. And what it does is it incentivizes a business to grow here in Vermont, provided that they meet certain targets. So they currently have to say they're going to grow X amount of jobs, a dollar value amount of payroll and capital investment. That's how it works currently. So we have some suggestions on how to make it a little bit more clear, easier to understand, more transparent. Like right now, the way the statute reads, we only aggregate the information every year. And so people are like, well, what did so-and-so get? And right now, the statute doesn't really permit us to do that. So we have some suggestions on how to change that.
We'll want a presentation that has a lot of data, a
Mhm.
lot of data on what's working,
Right.
who the money has gone to, how many jobs it's created, how many of those businesses have stayed here longer than 5 years.
So I
There
don't,
are issues, and we will be
Yes.
hearing about this in finance.
yes, it will totally be in your committee.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
thought we
be,
had that down with us. I don't see it on
I will, I
the-
charge rent for chairs, they're a scarce commodity.
well, and we'll want to give that some time, so
Yes.
no need to scramble
Okay.
for the
All right,
data.
that's
Which
fine.
is, some of it's up now, but we'll want to dive
Right.
deeply into it.
I mean, the other thing that we are going to bring back, and we mentioned it before, was the project-based TIF. In fact, during the year, you know, we had tried, I guess, about 5 times to get project-based TIF passed, and we weren't necessarily going to bring it forward. But towns are coming to us asking, what about that project-based TIF? And they're selling us on it. They're pitching to us why they
Yeah.
want it. So we thought, all right, we have to listen to that and come back to the drawing board and see if we could get that passed. In fact, Montpelier withdrew their regular TIF, and they're one of the proponents of project-based TIF.
Yeah.
It's simpler, it's easier. You don't have to do a 20-year plan. You
Yeah.
don't have to identify so many parcels and everything has to be aligned correctly, and then you
Yeah.
go in for changes. I mean, it gets really complicated really quickly. And, you know, some of the larger towns have been able to do it. Some of the larger towns have had problems with it as well. So I think project-based TIF really speaks to the need of, you know, there may be a smaller town that doesn't have the wherewithal, doesn't have the bonding capacity necessarily, right? So,
So the measurement should be easier also.
Yeah, and measuring
Yeah.
is easier. It's just so straightforward. So we will be back to the drawing board with that.
Do you know when you or I mean, Veggie, I think we want to put some TIF stuff in our housing bill, which will
Great,
start to take shape next week. So I don't know if you have
we do.
language or TIF
I think we
extensions
have
that
some
you want.
language, right?
There
Yeah.
was it's been run by me, but a proposal for a housing-based tip.
Yes, right, yeah, from a constituent of yours. I believe.
Yes.
Yes,
Former
yeah,
colleague.
yes.
That's great.
So, yeah, I mean, I think TIFs, most TIF stuff might end up in this faster moving bill, at least faster up here. Public finance.
Excellent, yeah, and I think we have language, right? Do we have
We do have
proposed? Yeah, we have some.
And it has TIF extensions that have been
So
requested.
TIF extension, if you want to explain.
Hartford.
Do you want me to come to the table?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
introduce
yeah.
yourself.
Sure.
directly.
Do you want me to go through my presentation or I can answer that question first?
Oh, if it's in your presentation, then
Well, not about the civic.
Okay.
Just an overview of.
we are trying to transition to your presentation, Abby, so it depends on. how
It's,
that
it's,
goes
it's
through.
fine. It works together.
We're gonna see you
Yeah.
almost every day.
So to your question, we did, I am aware that Hartford is looking for a TIF extension. It's not coming from the administration. The town is going to
Yeah.
approach the legislature on that.
We have a
That
bill
one
on
now.
Okay,
We have a bill now.
that's it, that's it.
For that, just Hartford is the
Okay.
only one that I'm aware of so far.
Are they the only one
that is-
up for expiration?
I think they have another year.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
doing it
so
in
We
advance.
did, we did Windsor, I think, last year, 2
And
years
Bennington
ago.
was last year.
I
This is an
would think-
extension on their debt concurrence or an extension?
So they're looking for an extension on both, debt incurrence
Okay.
and retention period, because at this point, let's see, they're at 13 years, that, because they got a 3-year extension,
So which of the three tips we just mentioned are you talking about?
Hartford,
Okay,
sorry, Hartford.
Well, we were,
Yeah, and so if they ask for another extension, I mean, you're getting so far into their 20-year
Yes.
government retention period that they're also looking at extending the retention period.
Yeah.
Because there's also, once they do install the public improvements, it takes a little while for those private developments to happen and come online and get to earn less before they start seeing the tax, there's a little bit of a lag there, so it just makes sense that both needs to be extended. As far as other towns, I mean, I had heard sort of anecdotally a couple of others. but
Yeah.
They don't always tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's somebody. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they're considering it seriously.
Yeah, well, they'll start to hear.
Because it's a legislative, like Betsy can't approve that.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Super quick question.
Yeah.
Do you ever deny them extending the TIF
So
or recommend denial if that's a legislative?
Yeah. So if they do want an extension, it would have to come from the legislature. There is something in statute or typical that allows Betsy to extend the debt incurrence period or increment retention. The only role that Betsy would have is to review their TIF district plan, TIF financing plan, and make sure that it's still viable. So if the legislature did approve an extension, then we would review that plan.
Yeah. I guess I was asking, do they ever get denied or have the TIF extensions been denied?
I don't know, I have to look and see it. I know that,
We haven't denied one that came to
Yeah.
us.
I don't think we have. It Ways and Means, I mean, they
We
were
might have come close
totally.
with Burlington.
No, it's Burlington, though. I mean, I did have standards.
Yeah, I know, right? We've delayed some of our decisions.
When I
but
got
don't
here,
think we've
there were-
denied.
Winooski, Burlington, and Milton all had different standards, different timelines. And finance did the standardized TIF bill. So
right.
the new ones are all playing under the same rules.
But just to clarify, just to make sure, so Betsy doesn't have any ability to approve an extension. It's always,
We have to do that.
Yes.
Because it impacts the end.
So, right, and what I meant to say was, have you ever recommended denials? And it sounds,
it seems like we're not a party to that.
oh, okay,
And we've never denied one.
okay.
I mean,
That was
it's
really what I
20
wanted to
years.
know.
We're just,
We'd be cutting
We're
off our
pushing it
nose to
out.
spite our
Yeah.
face.
and COVID kind of threw
A loop.
a wrench.
And that was our challenge.
Yes. And that
Pretty
was the
COVID
challenge of
based.
Windsor.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
shut everything down for 2 years.
Right.
So my name is, for the record, I'm Executive Director of the Vermont Economic Progress Council. I have been with Betsy for 5 years, 4 years as the Grants Program Manager, and then a year ago I got appointed as the Executive Director. Prior to that, I spent 6 months in the Agency of Education. That was my introduction to state government. And prior to that, I spent 11 years with the town of Bethel. When I left there, I was their assistant town manager. And then
Sorry, where were you assistant?
the town of
Like you
Bethel.
missed it.
Yes.
That was great.
That's what I thought I heard.
I was there during Irene.
Which was a challenging
It
time.
was a very challenging time. And prior to that, I was with the Windsor Northwest Supervisory Union, which is no longer in existence with the school consolidation, but I worked in special education during that time. Next slide, Jess. So a little background about Betsy. Betsy is an independent board of Vermont citizens. It was created by the General Assembly over 28 years ago. 9 members are appointed by the governor and 2 by the General Assembly. We currently have vacancies in the General Assembly with the departure of Charlie Kimball in the House and Cheryl Hooker in the Senate. So we are looking for an appointee from the Senate.
Okay.
We also have 2 vacancies for governor appointments, which we are working on, but as you can imagine, it's going to be a challenge to have a quorum with just 7 members currently until we get some more appointments in there. We are housed within ACCD and we receive our legal, administrative, IT, and other services and support from the agency. And we administer 2 programs for the state, the Vermont Employment Growth Incentive and the Tax Increment Financing Program, VEGI and TIP. This next slide. VEGI was created by the legislature and has been in place since 2007. It's designed to encourage job and payroll growth and the expansion of facilities. BEPSI's role is to review the applications to the program, determine eligibility, and authorize or deny a business to earn the incentive. It is not a grant. It is a performance-based incentive. So what that means is the company only receives a payment if they meet their performance requirements and maintain them. This chart gives you a little overview of where the incentive comes from. It's part of a complex cost benefit model, the same one that Joan described, that was part of the capital investment program. It looks at the revenues the company's growth bring to the state, and it deducts the cost to the state for that growth. And the incentive comes.
Abby, can I stop you? Is this, the green is the incremental revenue
That
from
the
the
green
new
is the
activity?
additional revenue.
And the blue is what they're currently doing, and then what we're paying out would be this incentive in yellow. Okay,
The
it's
blue
hard to read
is,
that.
the blue is, yeah, the blue is, it's not a flat line, it assumes that there is always going to be some sort of growth. But yes, the yellow is where the incentive is coming from the company, where the incentive is coming from that is paid to the company, as long as they do meet their performance targets. And just to point out on that too, that the model is driven by job growth. So if the company is not adding jobs, they can't access this program. If they're only doing capital investments, this program is not available to them. Next slide. So this is some of the data from our annual report that came out on September 1st. The actual data is based on claims submitted to the tax department, and there is always a little bit of a 2-year lag. And that is because tax is auditing each claim to make sure the targets are met before they pay the incentive to the company. So since 2007 through 2020, 331 incentive claims have been approved, paying out 33.8 million in incentives for the creation of 8,812 jobs, with over 1 billion in capital investments. It's been provided to 64 applications, receiving the incentive from this program over 13 years.
Senator Brocker.
Now talk about the demographic crisis that's affecting Vermont, with thousands of unfilled jobs, as opposed to when Betsy was started, we were looking for jobs to hire people. Now we're looking for people to fill jobs. Do you do anything in terms of metrics or or at least also in terms of speaking with the companies that are in the program now, or thinking of what the impact of that demographic crisis is, and whether or not the incentive, in fact, the entire program that we're looking at as an incentive program is the right thing to be looking for at this point in time. That's kind of a long and convoluted question, but I'm really interested in how you're addressing it. And you may not be able to tell us that today, but I think it's something that's going to be important to the committee, you know, as we go forward in talking with you further about what we do, if anything, with this program.
Yeah, and a lot of that is policy related, you know, we implement the program, so.
Somebody invents it and talks
Yeah,
about it.
so, I mean, to that point,
Yeah.
it's interesting, like, one of the things we'd like to see is, you know, what about just, if someone's doing a capital investment, we want them to continue to invest in their properties here, otherwise they'll do it elsewhere. So that's one of the ideas, it's like, what about just for capital investment? The other fact of the matter is, somebody like Beta grown like hundreds of jobs, and there are people moving to the state to take the job of Beta. So we don't look at the labor force as fixed and that there's no way to increase it. And we are hearing this a little bit, like, why are we incentivizing jobs? I don't know what the alternative would be. Do we want the jobs to grow in other states, right? So I think we have to continue to work to create good jobs. Like, people need to be gainfully employed, and then if there's a great opportunity in Vermont, they move for it. I mean, it's shocking how much Beta has grown, and they are telling us they're not having a problem hiring. So
They are having problems, though mostly with housing and childcare.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say,
I don't know that we're just living in one box, you
Right.
know, what
It's all
are the
it's
issues?
all integrated, it's hard to isolate it.
Is the money best used for a childcare center at Beta instead, or?
Yeah, I mean, at
Or
the same
housing.
time, I think we have to work on each of these things concurrently, because it's not gonna be like, okay, housing's fixed, and now we could recruit, right? It's sort of, it's an ecosystem of, are there good jobs being created? How do we incentivize that to happen? Are we building enough housing? Are we helping get the housing built by alleviating some of the, you know, barriers to that?
There used to be a thing called company housing. It
Yes.
has a very bad rap,
Bad
it
rap.
probably deserves it. But there
That's the
have
old
been
days.
proposals that in order to get workers,
Yes.
you might invest in housing for those workers. And that might be something
Right.
to look at if we don't need to really push for jobs. And I'm wondering, I mean, we're dealing with the census, which happened just prior to COVID, or in the middle of it. And we keep hearing that there's all kinds of people moving here. But how do we document that? I mean, do we have to wait 10 years to?
Brand list, schools,
That's how taxes might be a way to do it. But
income tax.
that's not a, well, no,
But the
because they
new-
would know new income tax.
They
Right,
would,
and they
that
would
might
also
be the
know
best
the
way.
number of taxpayers who are no longer filing, because that's one of the ways that you track.
And
the
sales of
movement of
homes.
people.
So that would be a
And
good
kids in
question
school.
for the tax department.
and
After
education.
Not fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the school
Okay.
population is still declining, right?
Well,
And yet I've been
and not
told-
in Woodstock. I mean,
Yeah.
we
I know
had
there are
enough
examples.
COVID and we were declining. But there is growth we can track.
Right.
AOE can help us, and tax can help us,
One
and
of
Grand
our,
List towns. can
yeah,
help
one
us.
of my niece is one of those people. that
Yes,
moved, and when she went to enroll her kids over in the valley, was told that that school was seeing quite a few new kids, so it may be our more affluent ski second home become first home towns, but that would also be something to track. Where is the growth? We know Chittenden County, but are there pockets? Something tells me that Brighton isn't seeing a big increase in population.
well, I think actually we'd be surprised. I mean,
Okay,
in
then we
terms
should
of
know that.
driving
There's still
distance
counties
to,
with
yeah.
population,
Yeah.
Rutland and Wyndham, and, you know.
Wyndham increased population, actually.
The last.
Yeah.
It
census
did,
story.
but now it's coming back.
It's
It
surprising.
increased.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes.
I do want to reward Heather's patience
Yes.
by giving her a full 20
Sorry.
minutes. So you're fine. You're 5 minutes. I just.
But yeah, I mean, I think we acknowledge that. We also want to incentivize that businesses are having to automate, that we should make sure they do that here as opposed to at a different plant.
I do also want to just mention too that the council they do ask, I hear that with every company, they do ask that question, where are we getting these people? And sometimes it is, well, we have housing we're providing to them. It is a recurring question with the applications. The applications have dwindled in recent years as well. 2022, we approved 4 final applications. 2021, I think it's 3. The year
Yeah,
before that,
was
I think
the
it's
year
4, and-
Right.
but before that, there were many more.
Right, right.
So the applications are dwindling as well.
There are ideas about employer generated housing from a number of different employers.
Vermont Glove.
All over the state, there are examples of it, and I don't know, you're probably gonna hear from DHFA, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's happening, yeah, that is
There's some
happening.
interesting
Okay,
models.
but
It's
this
interesting.
is the friendly committee. There are concerns in the money committee areas
You
and
also have 3 people on that. committee
that's
now.
right, but
Over
there,
there.
it will be, I think, a harder sell.
Yeah,
We're in favor of it in the morning and against it in the afternoon.
I know.
You need to commit the votes in the morning or the afternoon.
Can't, it's a different focus.
I know, I'm not gonna cross my chair in the afternoons.
Want me to continue with my?
Yeah, especially if there's some final slides.
Yeah, I think I have like 4 left. Just when I go to the next slide. So in every veggie annual report, we also have success stories. Data is one, as we just talked about. They were able to expand their South Burlington location with the use of veggie. They continue to grow in that location. They were also just approved for a second veggie award in 2022 to expand in St. Albans Town in an underutilized building. CAD is another company. They expanded their operations from California to a location in Randolph, taking up shop in a vacant building in East Randolph.
And GW Plastics in your own vessel.
They also have veggie.
Emma.
Yeah, their veggie covers Bethel and Warrenton.
So what does Cat do with the dogs?
I was looking at the dogs, not even
Well, the
wondering.
dogs are a real selling point.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting, Data also has dogs.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
true. So it's just a dog-friendly work
It's a
environment.
dog-friendly work. Okay, how about cats?
They cause too much trouble.
It's true, you can't become sick.
Tax increment financing districts, that is the other program that Pepsi oversees. The state currently has 10 active TIP districts, Killington being the newest TIP district.
Wow. We're quite
Approved
excited.
in June 2022. We also just approved their first phase filing for that district, so we're thinking something's going to be happening very soon there.
Yeah, it's sort of almost like a mini tip
I was gonna say, yeah, where is downtown Killington?
up towards the mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, I know where the town clerk's office is, so it's, all right,
It's
one of
closer
those-
to the ski area.
yeah,
Because it's not, you're right, it's not Route 4, it's not the village center.
right,
It's
it's,
up towards the mountain.
yeah, it's, okay.
We're now cutting into Heather's.
Yes, okay.
Well, poor Heather, I'm not pitting you against your colleagues here.
Yeah.
So these are 2 graphics that we use. I'm sure Heather's office created these for us.
They're beautiful.
To describe TIP, which basically how does it work? Municipality incurs debt. They use that debt to build their infrastructure and stuff. If you want.
This is the simplest TIF visual I've ever
Very
seen.
simple. TIP is complicated. So they use the TIP debt to build their infrastructure, which causes private development to happen, increases rent list values, which creates new property tax revenue, which they then, TIP districts then use to repay that TIP debt. The graphic on the right, just want to point your attention to the spot in green, well, the dark blue is the base value. Grand list values stay at that value of like the district. And then the lighter blue and the green, that's the overall tax increment that is generated. The lighter blue is the amount that continues to go to the education fund. And the green is the amount that goes to the TIF district fund to help repay TIF debt. They also, of course, have to repay their municipal tax towards that, but that is at a higher rate, 85% municipal, 15%. 85% TIF, 15%.
It depends.
Got one.
We also provide the annual report on the TIF program. The next one will come out on April 1st. Through fiscal year 2021, TIF districts have invested over 173 million in their communities, financing 117 million of that with TIF. These investments have spurred the private development and increased taxable values by over 405 million, generating over 92 million in tax revenues, with 6 million of that going to the education fund. Last slide, we again, sort of a success story, but we're required to provide profiles on each of our TIF districts. This one's on St. Albans. Since the creation of their TIF district, taxable values have increased over 50 million. They've invested over 31 million in public infrastructure, financing 20.5 million of that with TIF. In fiscal year 2021, just that year alone, their increase in taxable values generated 1.4 million in new tax revenues. Projects they've completed include brownfield remediation of multiple sites in their downtown, streetscape improvements such as Kingman Street on your screen, and the construction of a parking garage.
And we have a whole bunch of other programs that we'd be happy to talk to you about whenever you would like us back, so.
I may have said this already today, but you know, we're gonna do a big housing bill, and then we're gonna start looking at all the other requests we have after the budget address them. Put that into categories that generally relate to workforce and economic development. So you have a little time to sort of gather all that together.
That's great.
Is there any data requests that people have for next time, if we know that we're looking a lot at veggie and tips and things like that? We're gonna have those data requests in finance.
No, I'm actually thinking TIFs are really set for big municipalities that are planning and zoning in the finance office. And if we fulfill that need, maybe it's time to transition to a smaller system.
I think we agree in this committee. We have in the past. So.
Yeah, well, we'd have to give up on one, but that might work better for Vermont because it's a statewide property tax, school tax, whatever we do with it, that we impact with that. And it remains to be seen if we ever do go to an income-based school tax, what impact that would have on TIFs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things moving.
That's a good point. Thank you. That is succinct for such good work.
And there will be reports coming out shortly
Yes.
on everything from new worker to.
Yeah, I was gonna say new location,
New worker, community recovery will have a report, Vermont Training Program will have a report, we have a veggie report already out there.
The good news is we can connect those right to your recommendations and requests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those programs.
Yeah.
So when we hear them. So.
Yes.
But this was a really good overview, and you've done just incredible work being glued for
Well,
our
thank you,
state.
thanks for all that you've done to make that possible.
Appreciate you.
well, we're good, you know, when you talk about partners, we're one of your partners.
You totally are.
She doesn't forget.
Enemy.
We're not,
So the afternoon
Oh.
service would be your enemy.
we're not.
We don't like
listed.
to give
It's
away
You have
one
some
of-
new people.
Senator Chittenden, and Senator Long is one of them, and Senator McConnell, who is a attorney.
Yes.
So yes, it is. But there are three of us that, and then the other three are on natural resources.
Right, it is funny. Heavy.
So that's been a
It's good job.
standard. It hasn't always been 1 year, but
Yeah.
I frequently have had several members on natural and several members down.
I suppose there's a Peter.
And sometimes we don't always agree.
Oh, no.
Commissioner Pelham, thanks so much you heard a lot about what everyone else does, which probably helps you do your job. But thanks so much for being here. We can definitely ask Chief Romay to hold off for another 5 minutes and give you full allotment of time.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, for the record, Heather Cullum, I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Tourism and Marketing, but thank you for that. Also, I would say, I can always come back. So, I will be happy to provide this high level. And then if there's more information you'd like on anything in particular, please let me know.
Well, we're gonna do some field trips and I have you in mind. for
Oh,
one,
fabulous.
like border related. so.
Okay. Love field trips. So very, on a very broad level, our mission, Department of, well, I guess just very briefly, Senator Harrison, nice to meet you. And
Nice
just,
to meet you too.
I guess really quickly in terms of my background, I've been in this role since 2019, so about 3 years. I've been actually with the Agency of Commerce for 10. So previous to becoming Commissioner of the Department of Tourism and Marketing, I was the Chief Marketing Officer for the state. So within the Agency of Commerce, but looking to the rest of the state enterprise and helping other agencies and departments with their marketing and communication needs. And then previous to that, I was in the private sector running a creative agency here in Vermont.
What?
A creative.
Oh,
agency
creative, wonderful.
for about 15 years or so. So that's my background.
Thank you.
So Department of Tourism and Marketing, as the name implies, we are about promoting the state. And our mission is not just for visitation, but that has extended to relocation as well in terms of facing some of our demographic challenges as they come up. And to your point, Chair, about listening to the rest of the agency, one of the reasons why I do that is because our work really is interconnected. So when I think about tourism, I think of that is, rural economic development. Tourism reaches all corners of the state. It has that ability to kind of transcend in terms of it is also about revitalizing our communities. It's about those assets that visitors come to enjoy. I would also remind folks that where our work starts is at the very top of the marketing funnel. So if you think about that, we're not selling any one product, but we're selling the idea of Vermont. And so that idea is, yes, please come here on vacation, but it's also just generally continue to nurture that brand affinity that folks have with Vermont. So maybe they're visiting family and friends, maybe they came to school here, maybe they came on vacation, and all of that adds up to either repeat visitation or potentially maybe they want to come here as new residents.
Are people now looking for Jericho County, Vermont, where to show Wednesday? Let's go.
I will have to check. I'll be curious to talk to the folks in Jericho to see if they've gotten gotten questions about that. Senator Brock and I have had a chance to work together on the Film and Media Task Force where that's come up, which we'll come back and talk about
I
another
like
day.
the hallmark that came into Rutland Regional Airport that had terminals.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
And none of that was filmed.
It's okay, it doesn't matter. Vermont is mentioned, it's a Vermont touch.
Filmed in Canada, but.
It's, who cares? They're talking about it as a Vermont thing,
No,
they don't
it's
care
good
where it's
to know.
filmed, they care that it
Of course,
says
then there
Vermont.
was a avalanche and people got shut in and couldn't get out. I don't know. if we should
It's
do
fiction.
that.
So if we go to the next slide, Jess, I did want to give an overview for context in terms of, the tourism, the visitor economy, as we refer to it in the state of Vermont. It's almost a $3 billion part of our economy. So as I mentioned, it touches all sectors, all sections of the state, all regions of the state. Pre-pandemic, we were looking at about 13 million visitors who come to the state. We are, are on the road to recovery. I would not say that we're totally there yet. But as a source of generation for the general fund, $387 million. If you do the calculation as to, how much that translates to per household in Vermont, it's about $1,500 of tax savings that, might have needed to be generated elsewhere for it not coming from visitation. So just a point of context for folks, over 30,000 jobs, that's 10% of our workforce. So this really is a significant part of, I would hope, any economic development and community development conversations. I also wanted to include outdoor recreation. We've all seen how that has exploded. It was always a brand strength for us, but in terms of what we've seen over the last several years, new statistic came out from the Bureau of Economic Analysis that shows that outdoor recreation is 4.1% of our GDP, and that puts us as third highest in the country. So just beyond Hawaii and Montana. Also in terms of the job growth within the outdoor recreation sector, from 20 to 21, we saw a 17.5% increase in jobs in the outdoor recreation sector. Excuse me.
So we're just behind Montana and what?
Hawaii
So does that
for GDP.
are ski resorts included in that? Are they?
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
absolutely. But mountain biking
Well, I
is
thought it
really
might have
a huge
been
growth
used.
area.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a broad sector, but I think it just kind of speaks to the intersection, of
Oh,
these types
totally.
of questions that we're talking about. And so that job growth, that 17.6% from 20 to 21, that put us as sixth highest in the country, highest in the east. Again, all the other growth was in the far west.
Are we doing any thinking, planning about the impact of climate change on some of our outdoor recreation?
We are, yes, I would say, one of the, through all that we lost through COVID in terms of travel and tourism, there is another set of money that is coming to the department through the Economic Development Administration, EDA. There's a set aside state grant program. Every state is receiving a pot of money based proportionally to their losses in travel and tourism. When we get access to that money, which we will have in the next 2 years or so, one of the things that we're doing is a whole bunch of strategic planning, as well as data collection, research, and so forth about how do we create resilience in the industry. So climate change is certainly part of that. So I would say more to come.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of one small town that doesn't plow its roads so that you can have snowmobiles, and I don't think there's any snowmobiles on those roads right now or on the lakes unless they're into high risk snowmobiling.
Yeah.
It's
Our industries, our iconic Vermont industries are very hugely impacted by
Yes.
climate change.
Yeah.
Skiing and outdoor rec heavily. But all of tourism is
Yeah.
going to be impacted by it.
So, the resilience of our communities, the ability to pivot, the ability to define what it is that makes a community unique, that is something that, we do now. And as that changes, we will continue to do so.
Can you do us a favor and connect Scott with the Outdoor Recreation Alliance or the association?
Sure.
So we can help them in to testify later.
Yeah, so the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance is a group that we work with quite a bit. And then I would also encourage you to talk to Jackie Dagger if you haven't already. She is
Yes.
the
A
VORAC.
Woodstock girl,
Yeah.
now a
She's the-
Woodstock woman.
She's the VORAC program manager, so that's the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative.
Okay.
And she has a joint position between Forest Parks and Rec and ACCD. So
Yeah.
I would think between Jackie and then Kelly Alt, who's the executive director of VOBA, would be great.
This would be great.
So then just I can go quickly through sort of what we do. Next slide is just about, our signature program, certainly is destination marketing. We, again, we're at the top of the funnel, we're planting that seed. We're trying to reach as many people as possible by elevating the brand experiences that are created throughout our state. We use owned, earned, and paid media. Quickly owned media is what we can say about ourselves. That's our website, social media, and so forth. Earned media is press, what people are saying about us, and then paid media clearly is we pay for it. But it gives us a lot more opportunities to reach more people than we would be able to do so on our own. I did include in this presentation, and I can just kind of go through it quickly and again, come back, or in this presentation, I did try and include some links, but everyone kind of wants to know what we do. So the next couple of slides show some visuals of the creative work that we do. So, we lean heavily into our brand strengths and outdoor recreation and so forth. But what we're really trying to do is, reinforce that idea that, coming out of the pandemic, our theme was beyond four walls. Now we're talking about beyond the everyday. And it's really one of our campaign lines is, Vermont is a place unlike any other, where life is better when you slow down, look around, and simply take notice. Vermont can inspire, restore, and bring you to a whole new state.
Great.
This is just some, again, just some
they're great.
examples of what we do. We do a lot of work in this is digital advertising that you're seeing here. If you go to the next slide, Jess.
But your whole campaign of bringing people back after the pandemic has been wonderful.
It's
I remember
been
the
very,
sea ones.
it's been very heartening. I mean, there's so many different persons I can dig into, but we did through some one-time funding that we received last session, we were able to do a much larger campaign this year to aid that recovery. We can talk about base funding another day in terms of being able to sustain that. But I believe this next slide just shows we also do out of home. So this is an example of a campaign we ran this summer in the New York City market. I think it's a great juxtaposition to see, how we can really position Vermont as a place where people will want to go when they're seeing it on the sidewalk. So this was a program where there was creative specifically about encouraging the new train extension to Burlington, which you can see all the way on the far left. And then these were on bus shelters and digital boards in residential areas in Manhattan and in Brooklyn.
My son sent me some of these pictures.
We also had boards up and down the commuter rail line in Connecticut, as well as in Grand Central Station. So I can do a larger report on that, but people
Very
love
well
this.
targeted.
It's a great market for us. It's also, our core markets are definitely our drive markets here in the Northeast, but, we are competing nationally and internationally. So, we really have to kind of weigh what we're doing where. This next slide is another tactic of ours. It's called sponsor content. So we work with different brands and publishers to create content about Vermont. That helps us access their reach so that brand, like Outside, you're seeing here, Backpacker, Yoga Journal, and so forth, Clean Eating, they have their whole sense of followers. So if we work with them, hopefully then we can bring them over to our channels and continue that conversation. It also gives us a chance to highlight different trip ideas. So different, inns you might say, at restaurants you might go to, different experiences you can have. When we work on sponsored content, we have that ability to kind of go that level deeper. I think the next slide is just another couple of examples, in terms of the types of content that we put out. The one on the left is about scenic drives you can take around the state. We did a digital travel guide for mountain biking. We partnered with Edge Media, which is a LGBTQ plus content platform, to do what they call a rainbow road trip. And then the far right is about, we worked with New York Magazine to do a piece about culinary experiences that you can have here in Vermont. So just examples. Those should all click through to the actual articles when we pass on this presentation. Metrics, we love to talk about metrics. So I'm happy to, again, dive into this. We'll try and go a little quickly just to give you guys a sense of where we try to think about the effectiveness of our work. Through our digital display advertising vendor, we are trying to calculate that very important return on ad spend number. 37-to-1 is preliminary what we've seen for the summer campaign. I will say that was just for the first 2.5 months of it.
So sorry, it's 30, just explain. It's $37 of income we see in Vermont to one.
For every $1 we spend on advertising. So
Right.
for instance, the $200,000 that we spent on advertising with this particular vendor, didn't do that amount of time, but 37 times that. I can give you a bigger slide with more information on that, but that's what we're seeing so the folks exposed to that advertising, when they showed up in market and they made purchases here, we can see that it's 37 times versus the amount we spent to put out those ads. We're also seeing that there's more than a 3 times likelihood that someone exposed to advertising actually does show up in the marketplace than those who are not exposed to it. Again, we can have longer conversations about return on investment, but it is as important to us as it is, I think, to everybody in this body. We also, so in terms of how do we think about the impact of our work, I started talking about taxes and, big macroeconomy level type impacts. Again, then there's these sort of more performance-based that I just mentioned here. And then there's just what I would call basic marketing metrics. So are we reaching more people with our social media audience? Are we, increasing visits to our website, which is where, we track conversions in terms of, is somebody, looking at our travel planner and connecting to local businesses about where they might want to stay or where they might want to go? Are they interacting with our events calendar? And so those, we have whole different layers of types of metrics that we try and monitor, see how we're doing.
And YOYs year on year?
Yes, year over year, excuse me for that. So I'm going to move on to the next major program that we work on is relocation through our Think Vermont program. I think you guys are well aware of our demographic crisis. So, Think Vermont is something that has been in existence for a couple of years now. We use some of the same tactics, earned and owned media. We do not have a paid media budget for that work. That said, I will, if you see on the next slide, we were able to find a carve out for $60,000 to do a small social media campaign this summer. This is some of the creative that we use for that, where we were really talking about, what it is like to live and work in Vermont. And I'll just go to the next slide to show you that I hope this is not any surprise, but one of our conversion points is when we are doing advertising, people come to Think Vermont, we have this Connect with a Vermonter form. So you can see that when the campaign was running in August and September, we saw the number of average inquiries we got from that form double. So I hope it's not a surprise that, when you get the word out there, you actually get people engaged with you. That whole Connect with a Vermonter process, what that is, really is our lead generation and distribution system. So people show they're interested in moving to Vermont, then we find out where they might be interested in moving to. That's what the graph on the bottom is. And then we distribute those leads to the local regions. That's where we've seen the most impact in terms of being able to make that final sale. If somebody is interested in moving here, is by talking to somebody on the local level. The huge issue there is that we've always done it on a volunteer basis with our partners. They are very willing partners, but they don't have the capacity to really handle this, one-on-one level support that we know is impactful. So that's something I would love to talk to you guys about again. And then we're probably running, and then I can just, if we go to the next slide, Jess, the other area, I would say another big area of our work is just really supporting the industry at large. Through a one-time appropriation, we were able to do a grant program. We've never been able to do that in the past, but that was one-time money that we were able to do. We were able to give out 22 tourism and economic recovery marketing grants. We will have a report coming out in February about that in total, but it was up to about $30,000, and we were able to fund things like festivals in the Waking Windows in Winooski, the Fly Fishing Festival down in Arlington. We've been able to fund creative assets like Vermont Adaptive is doing some videos on the work that they do. Itinerary development in, I know Addison County, NEK, Upper Valley, it was just a couple of different projects. So I can give you more details on that. And that's been wonderful to be able to work with our communities, because it's really, we're not creating those brand experiences. We're just trying to make sure as many people as possible know about them. And so when we talk about partnerships and sponsorships, that's another area of our work. And that's where, for instance, we work with the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. One of our priorities is looking at everything we do through a DEI lens. Boba's been a great partner with us with that. We did a project together this summer to get some additional diverse photography for our work. And we've also recently joined Travel Unity, which is a nonprofit organization looking to increase diversity in the world of travel. We've created our own DEI statement that we're using to kind of guide our work. So
I hope you've partnered with Myrna Valerio right here in Montpelier.
Yeah, Myrna is wonderful. She's an amazing brand ambassador, and even in, so it's just social media influencers in general.
Right.
When we look at, who we're working with, all the, one of our signature programs this summer was about bringing, I think it was 5 separate BIPOC influencers here for, different areas of the state. Again, I can give you more information about that. But through partnerships and sponsorships, that's one way that we can elevate the things that are important and priorities to us.
And what do you have left in that? How much money was in the?
It was 600,000.
That's right.
So that was gone. It was competitive. We had 41 applications. We were able to give out 22 grants. But potentially through the EDA money that I mentioned earlier, that is still to come, we might be able to do some of those programs again. Then the last program is just so you folks know, the Chief Marketing Office is also part of the Department of Tourism Marketing. It's 2 folks that, as I mentioned, that's where I came into the agency. They work to support other agencies and departments in their communications needs, whether it be through infographics about, budget impacts and so forth, or just accessing marketing expertise. We have a pre-qualified vendor program and also a set of master marketing contracts so that state agencies who may not have communications staff or a very deep communications staff can still get access to that level of expertise. And I think those are the highlights. We work with a number of different partners around the state, just like the rest of the agency, whether that be other state departments or, other activity specific or, regions, downtown organizations and so forth. And I think the last slide is just about buzzwords, which was our sort of standard that we did throughout the agency. So.
Oh, okay. I wondered why I brought that buzzword.
Yeah. Well, we were, in terms of folks who maybe not for this committee, but for folks who are interested in, if you are hearing conversations about branding or about marketing or about, about film or about, those types of things, come to us if you would, or include us in the conversation. If there's data you're looking for, wondering how we intersect, that was the idea of including those.
Great.
We noticed we're not listed as one of your partners.
Oh, well,
Where,
I think
where
it's,
were you looking for the partners now?
the last one, I don't think we listed committees. I think we were.
No, you don't need a committee, it's just the
This-
legislature.
Yeah, oh, fair enough.
Oh,
Fair
I
enough.
mean, I'm sorry.
I mean, but they're talking to us, so, they know.
Well, we did have a committee slide that we gave this presentation to new legislators and we did have a whole conversation about
What, yeah,
committees. Yes.
We missed that.
we
Um,
missed what you said, but I'm sure it was partnership-like.
Poor Jess is now gonna go add the legislature to everything, which doesn't feel like a good use of her time. This was a great preview,
It
more,
was terrific.
more to
There's a lot going
come.
on.
As we wrap up, Jessica, we want to thank you very much. And we wouldn't even know you're not in Vermont. You're still a Vermonter. So we hope someday soon you make it back. But just thank you to ACCG, to tourism, to Jessica. Yeah.
No, it's my pleasure. And if you have specific follow-up questions, I know we don't have much time right now, but please let me know, what else you'd like to hear more on.
Well, we can't wait for your graphics once the budget is out and you're coming back with your specific ask. We can't wait for that.
Well, we're gonna do
Single page
something on
graphic.
Film and media, Jeff was an integral part of the task force that we had this summer, and I think it's encouraging thing to come from that.
Yeah, we'll hear,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get a presentation going and we'll have, so Jessica, we'll just, if you can coordinate with Scott on after the budget address, we'll be maybe like early February, mid-February.
Yep. We will be ready with graphics and one pagers. So
Perfect. We appreciate that. Thank
you
you.
all.
Thanks. Thanks. Thank you, Chief, for your patience. We had a busy morning. Appreciate you being here.
Say all about
Bye. See you
why
soon.
I moved to Vermont. I can keep it open if you like.
Keep it open. We're just wondering, I mean, I don't think I had anything to discuss that felt confidential, but I just want to let the committee know if you felt like you have a security threat or something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we
offline.
don't need to
I
be
think
live for a
that's
security update.
Typically, we don't.
appropriate.
Yeah, typically we don't.
We don't, okay, I just didn't